Call meeting to order. Everybody could rise. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Did you catch it?
We got a roll call. Madam Auditor.
Councilmember Rivas.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Jetson.
Here.
Councilmember Larson. Councilmember Paparad.
Here.
Councilmember Finn.
Here.
And Councilmember Ray.
Present and accounted for, Madam Auditor.
Minutes of August 25th, 2020.
I'll make the motion. Second.
Motion and second on the floor to approve the August 25th minutes. Further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. First reading.
Notice is hereby given the taxpayers of Porter County, Indiana, that the property legal officer of Porter County,
That old one.
Porter County Government, September 22nd, at 5:15 to the following appropriation adjustment to the county budget for the year 2020, and to transact any further business which may come before the county general fund. Election of in-place board, $70,000. Office supplies, $10,000. Ballots and coding, $70,000. Dues and subscriptions, $25,000. Sheriff's garage. Auto truck and equipment supplies, $35,000. Federal DSC, other equipment, $32,000. Cumulative bridge fund, $11,000. Contractual, $1.7 million. Prosecutor forfeiture fund, 1234. Office supplies, $5,000. Legal, $5,000. Prosecutor pre-trial fund, 2503. Legal, $15,000. Forfeiture pass-through fund, 4928. Legal, $75,000. And distribution, $100,000. Addition to the fund grant, 8116. Mental health, $12,000. Taxes appearing at such meetings shall have the right to carry beyond their dues. Appropriation adjustments of General Maple will be received by the Indiana Department of Local Government Finance. Where applicable, the DOJ recommends written determination of the sufficiency of funds to support the appropriation within 15 days of receipt of a certified copy of application, which is advanced out of their report of county published September 11th, and the session should begin in next week.
Thank you. All right, Superior Court 2.
I'm going to make a motion to approve all the transfers.
Second. There's a motion and a second on the floor to approve all the transfers. Additional funds for transcript, court reports, and any other expenses. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Public Defender. Ken Elwood.
I'll make a motion on this $10,000 transfer on the Public Defender Supplemental Fund.
Second.
Motion and a second on the floor. Discussion?
We have a lot of appeals going on. Is that what's happening here?
It's not just appeals, it's cost for depositions, interpreters, investigators, conflict cases, and appeals. But yes, there's been a couple of larger case appeals that have tapped the fund pretty significantly. I would mention that this fund has traditionally had $25,000 in it, but it was dropped to $15,000 a few years back at the council's request. So we've come back the last 2 years to add to it.
So, have you made that adjustment in the budget?
I have. That's my only increase for the full budget.
We're going to cut it, though.
I appreciate it. Perfect. I'll be back.
Motion, call for the question, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor of the transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Seen a little bit.
Yes.
Porter County Expo Center. Lori, got a transfer.
I'll make a motion on these, on the $13,000 and the $1,500.
$13,000 from hourly, $1,500 from
Second.
hourly.
Second.
Motion and a second on the floor. Further discussion?
So how bleak has it been due to COVID? I assume real bleak?
Well, we're down about two-thirds in revenue, a little over $300,000. Just in 2020, it's starting to spill over into 2021, unfortunately.
So, I have one question that, well, I guess I could bring it up at budget time, but I'm interested in the Tourism Bureau's change of the marketing funds, and I want to see what impact that might have. We can talk about that at budget time.
Okay. We haven't done anything. we are having events, but I haven't, other than the prior obligation, there was 2 of them. I've continued with that, but other than that, we've cut everything off.
Okay.
So you mentioned you're down 2/3 in revenue,
Mhm.
and that's to date. But going forward, are you seeing bookings and are things
Next year.
That would be the estimate for 2020.
go through the end of the
We
year?
are seeing a lot of inquiries, mainly it's weddings.
Okay.
It's the trade shows and things like that, the weekend things that are really, you know, we can't go over 250, so it's hard to pull people into that safely.
So those are a bust.
There's still a handful on the books for 2020. They're kind of waiting to see what the governor does. But unfortunately, the health department, well, fortunately, the health department also has to approve their plans.
Right.
So they're just assuming if the governor lets them go, and up to 500, say, that the health department will follow suit. And I don't believe they will. And so I'm trying to tell them, but they want to hold on and haven't canceled yet.
Why do you think the health department's going to be more strict than the governor? Just a feeling you get?
It's a feeling I get.
Well, one's a doctor and the other one isn't.
Yeah.
Might have something to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, I was just curious.
That was a great question, but it's my guess.
I mean, I don't know what our health department knows that our government, I mean, it's just total curiosity.
That's just my guess, and you, obviously, I can't speak for them, so I probably shouldn't have
Yeah.
said that, but that's just my feeling. But I think the point was is that they can, you know, keep it the way it is through the end of the year if they want.
Yeah, and the health department is having to dig in a little deeper in the weeds. I mean, even
Yeah.
the Families First Corona Relief Act talks about healthcare providers and local, you know, ordinances or rules or regulations, and I think the health officer has taken that mantle on to do that, and she's doing so as a physician. So I think that probably she's going to err on the side of caution, as you would expect, so.
Well, especially when you're doing events. I mean, you've got people coming from different states
Mhm.
and cities and not wanting to wear masks,
Right.
unfortunately.
How do you enforce that?
Oh, believe me, we do.
But I mean, if someone I'm not going to wear
They have
one,
to.
and then you kick them out, or?
Yes, we do.
You know, okay.
We will. We have not yet had to yet. Weddings are a little tougher because once people start drinking, they get a little loose and forget it a lot. Most of them will put it right back on when we remind them.
It's hard to drink with that mask on. I got it, man.
Do we have a representative from the health department attending most of those functions?
All of them, yes.
Every single one?
Every single one.
So they're attending because they like the event, or they attended to monitor it?
To help monitor.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And does that come out of your budget?
It does not. I think
The
they
health
were
department.
still trying to work out the monies, so the events, we've collected it on, and I still have it.
Interesting.
Any more discussion? All right. All in favor of the 2 transfers, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Good night.
Prosecutor. We got a forfeiture fund. Vicki, I think this is the one that, did you want to come up and also present yours? Because I think they're related. You have the same, so maybe we can take the auditors and the prosecutors together. So, we have couple additionals of $5,000 to office supplies and legal reason appropriations need for the new prosecutor forfeiture fund.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
On both, prosecutor,
Yes.
forfeiture fund, and pretrial, the motion is second. For the prosecutors, further discussion? Get a roll call on those.
Yes, Councilmember Graham?
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen?
Yes.
Councilmember Paparad?
Yes.
Councilmember Sims?
Yes.
Councilmember Witten?
Yes.
And Councilmember Rivas?
Yes.
6-0.
So auditor forfeiture fund, pass-through fund. Vicki, you got $75,000 to legal to establish an appropriation for the court order distribution of forfeiture assets for legal fees and services. An additional $100,000 to distribution, to establish an appropriation for the court order distribution of forfeiture assets to law enforcement agencies responsible for the seizure.
I'll make a motion on both additions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Get a roll call.
Councilmember Jessen,
Yes.
Councilmember Paparad,
Yes.
Councilmember Sims,
Yes.
Councilmember Witten,
Yes.
and Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
and Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
6-0. And on that one, this fund is more of an administrative fund. It's going to be called a pass-through fund because the monies that are going to come into it, we're going to spend it right based on the court order to the attorney fees that the attorney has been selected from the prosecutor, as well as the outside police agency. And the funds are starting to come into these funds. And I think 75 and 100,000 should get us through the end of the year.
Yes, I agree.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Good evening.
Thank you.
Porter County Sheriff Garage and Jail, the Sheriff General Fund transfer, $60,000.
I'm going to make a
salary
motion on
overtime.
the $60,000 transfer and on the $10,400.
Second.
It's a motion on both the sheriff transfers. In a second, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Sheriff Garage, an additional $35,000 to auto truck and equipment supplies to cover the balance of the year for garage services.
Motion.
It's a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
In a second by Councilwoman Graham. Discussion.
So this fund, we ran short? What happened that made us run short? Just something extraordinary, unusual, or just?
No, just, well, we had some come over from last year because we couldn't get the bills in time. It's always happening. We had a lot of repairs. Got 3 pages of repairs for this year.
But we think next year with all the new cars we have and the old cars are getting rid of,
Yeah.
that we will not be in the same situation that we are in this year.
And we might not use it all. That's just enough to cover just in case. So just all depends on the next car that breaks down.
Is that, what's in that account now then?
0 right now. We started out with, I believe it's 35,000. Pardon?
Vicki, bring that up. Bring that fund up.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
It's average like 11,000 a month.
It averages about 11,000 a month right now, this year.
So we don't have 0, we have $18.01.
Yeah.
You're getting better than you thought.
80, come on.
I know.
So is this just a outlying year where it's so much more than prior years?
Not necessarily. We've had it, happen like this, and we've come back, or we've had stuff pull over to the next year in order to get through the year, which isn't good, but not much we can do.
Well, let's roll.
Well, this are bicycles, right?
We're
We're trying to
working
get
on a
some.
grant for
We're
that
trying to
one.
get
Bikes are good.
Bicycles?
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Get a roll call on the general fund additional.
Councilmember Paparad,
Yes.
Councilmember Sims,
Yes.
Councilmember Witten,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen,
Yes.
6-0.
Federal DOC, an additional $32,000 to other equipment to cover the cost required replacement of expired tasers for necessary jail and court security staff.
I'll make a motion to approve this request.
Motion on the floor.
Second.
And a second. Discussion.
How do tasers expire?
Don't they
You
get,
use
are
them?
they battery or?
Yeah, they have a limit, like everything else, like the body armor and everything, and we go a little over that with tasers.
What do you do with them?
They are,
Are you afraid of
every
men?
single one of them is expired right now.
So by them changing it, it requires us to
Yes.
get new ones.
Yeah. Right.
How long do they normally last, or what is?
Are you contemplating a crime spree?
No. I had them tased, though, I tell you.
Yeah.
By design. I volunteer. I
What do you do with the,
Make sure you get that down, though.
Well, we would destroy the tasers because
You destroy
there's
them.
nothing you could do with
Yeah,
them.
you don't.
We can't, like, give them to another agency like we've done some things.
Maybe give a few to us?
Yeah, but they won't, if you break them, they won't
She
work.
thought about
And the-
bringing them to these
And the
meetings.
taser cartridges change too, so.
You have a motion.
We're good with that. Did we?
15 years?
Yeah, 15 years of jail.
Oh, okay.
So we let
Okay.
those.
Get a roll call, Madam
Okay.
Auditor?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitten,
Yes.
Councilmember Reavis,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Justin,
Yes.
and Councilmember Papera.
Yes. I think the term is ride the lightning.
Thanks. Addiction Response Grant,
Move to approve the additional.
Second.
$12,000 to mental health, to cover the cost of aftercare for inmates upon release. Motion and a second. Discussion, roll call.
Councilmember Whitten,
Yes.
Councilmember Reavis,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Justin,
Yes.
Councilmember Papera,
Yes.
and Councilmember Finn.
Yes. Is there something wrong? Did we do something wrong?
No, I found it. It's here, overtime.
Motion carries. What else?
That's it?
Is that it?
Transferring, did the transfers already then? Okay.
Oh, did I?
Yep.
Thank you.
Everything good?
Thank you.
Sheriff,
Thank you.
your transfer?
Thank you.
See you later, man.
Thanks. All right, what do we got up? Development Stormwater Management, is that correct?
We got an additional of $1.5 million, which I will move to approve from the Cume Bridge Fund.
Second.
Motion and a second on the floor, discussion.
So how many more bridge projects do we have for the remainder of the year, Bob?
As far as construction goes, we have one. This is for Bridge 62. That's going to be let by NDOT over the Kankakee River. And we know that our federal aid is at $1.5 million, and the last engineering estimate we had is going to be $2.5 million in construction. So we also have another bridge that's going to be probably let in March, maybe a couple of bridges let in March. There's a couple of rehab jobs up in Portage we're going to be doing in March.
Okay. All right,
Are
awesome.
we getting caught up on bridges, or certainly in a better position than we were, but NDOT sent out a letter about a year ago where we had maybe 10 bridges that they wanted to see us go for federal funding on to get them off the system. We are just about there. I'm going to put 2 more in for their recent fiscal year 2026 call that they have out now. So, yeah, we are. I mean, there's a list of bridges that we have to have inspected yearly, and we're going to be through that list here in a few years. it's good progress.
So when you come back for this, I mean, money that you didn't anticipate doing this many bridges, spending this much money, why the additional, why not built into the budget with anticipation of the work you're going to do?
We weren't anticipating this to be that. We rejected this Bridge 62 bid. It was done in March with NDOT. I rejected it because it was better than $1 million over the engineer's estimate. If I didn't reject it, NDOT wasn't going to let me accept it, essentially. So we've been preparing and trying to figure out how to go forward with this. So, I mean, this is something I could not figure, I just didn't figure into the budget.
Got it. Mystery solved.
Further discussion? Can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Reavis,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Justin,
Yes.
Councilmember Papera,
Yes.
Councilmember Finn,
Yes.
and Councilmember Whitten.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Investing
Thank you.
in our infrastructure. Portage Township Assessor. Portage Township Assessor General Fund, a transfer of $625 from travel to training and education. Online courses for continuing education hours for staff.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion. I mean, this could be stuff paid out of that one fund, right, Vicki? But stuff that we need to look at. Discussion?
Big stuff.
Yes. All in favor of the transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Good evening.
Have a good one.
Clerk. Clerk General Fund, a transfer of $15,000 hourly to other supplies for appropriate funds. Purchase for the pandemic new locking system for courthouse doors and supplies for moving offices.
Move to approve.
It's a motion on the floor to approve the transfer.
Second.
Second. Discussion.
Is this something that'll be reimbursed through the CARES Act, or?
No, not for the clerks, for elections, but not for clerks. Oh, some of this, yes. Some of this will be,
Vicki, can
I
you
believe
jump
Vicki
in
put
here?
in.
Do
Sorry.
you think any of this stuff can be reimbursable under the CARES Act?
If it was purchased for the pandemic, I assume it
Yeah, I
can.
mean,
Some of it, I believe, was reappropriated, or will be.
We're buying, why are you buying locks? Isn't that the commissioner's wheelhouse? We spent millions and all this remodeling, and you're buying locks?
We want the swipe locks.
I can't hear you.
We want the swipe locks for the clerk's office and downstairs for our accounting office.
Well, I don't care about that. I'm just wondering why is she buying locks for the building that we just spent millions on?
Sounds like a preference for your...
Well, I'm
We
not
were-
saying she can't buy locks, I'm saying why aren't the commissioners buying locks? That's all I'm saying.
We were
Well, no.
originally budgeted for it out of our 4D budget, but we can only take a percentage of that. So I can pay for part of it out of the 4D budget, but I can't pay for the entire thing. I can only pay for like 4%.
I don't know why you're paying for any of it. That's my point.
well,
Did you even ask, the commissioners, say we want different locks, because this is going to guard our votes, or our...
It's for the clerk's office, not the elections office,
Oh,
and for my accounting office over there. So it doesn't have anything to do with elections, and it's something that we had gotten the bid for last year. I don't know if they intend on putting locks in we don't have swipe locks anywhere in the courthouse. I don't know if they're intending on doing that or not. But per child support guidelines, we have to change the code every time somebody within the office is hired or fired within 24 hours. There's a lot of people. That includes not only us, but the sheriff's department that comes in there, the maintenance people, everything else. So changing the code consistently is just a lot. So we wanted to swipe locks, the same ones we have at 157 and here.
Yeah, my interest is primarily centered around what specifically was purchased for the pandemic, and whether or not we are accounting for it appropriately so that we can get reimbursed if applicable.
Mm-hmm.
If this is something, a new expenditure that's related to COVID, we do ask that comes out of that line item in the foundation budget.
No, this is all stuff that was done ahead of time. So you may have reappropriated it, but, I know I got some questions from Tony about what some of the expenditures were, but most of that was elections.
well, there you have it.
Further discussion?
I'm assuming that when you buy these locks, which I don't care, and the commissioners buy locks for the rest of the building, that they'll be coordinated, so we're not buying two different kinds of locks, that your card don't work at the other door and blah, blah, blah.
No, it'll be the same locking system that's at North County and that's at the admin center and at 157. So all of the locks, IT will
Okay.
adjust to our badges.
Okay.
All in favor of the transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Transfer carries. Board of Elections and Registration. Got a lot going on here.
Just to get it going, I'm going to make a motion on all of it to approve.
Second.
So there's a motion on all of it, an additional $70,000, additional $70,000, additional 10, 25, 5, 1, 2, 2, 4, 1,500, 4,000. So,
we should have done...
motion second. Discussion.
Yeah, so Jessica, if you would just go through and kind of explain what you're doing through these requests.
Okay, so the first additional is for $70,000 for polling place boards. That $70,000 is what we transferred to the vehicle fund in order to purchase the Vote-Mobile earlier this year. So that's, in 2019, we had the $70,000 left over, and we weren't able to make the purchase until the 2020 budget. So that $70,000 came out of polling place boards to make the transfer so that we could concrete the contract immediately instead of waiting for the additional to come before we could sign the contract.
How are we looking on poll workers? Do we have sufficient?
The chairman have until October 13th to give us their polling place boards. We requested that they try as much as they can to get them to us by Labor Day, and I believe we're about 15 away from the Republican list, and we haven't received anything from the Democrats, but last I heard, we were about 75 away.
75 short.
Mhm.
I thought we encumbered the money for the
Nope,
Nope.
we did not. For the vehicle?
Yeah.
No, we tabled it in like, October and November and never readdressed it.
So if we're short after October 13th, then you get to fill
Mhm,
those.
correct. And we have an e-blast that's going out on, oh, yeah, today.
Went out
Yeah, it
already.
went today.
I
Yeah,
got one today.
Yeah, we have an e-blast that went out today, and we have a lot of people through social media we've been reaching them. A lot of people are going to the county website and applying to be a poll worker. We're doing presentations to the little, to the groups that, and organizations that ask us to gather poll workers, so we'll let you know when we get closer.
So if you would do a solid here, and when you get to October 13th, if not, if you don't know sooner, shoot us out something that tells us, this is how I stand, and this is the vacancies, how many vacancies we have,
Mhm.
just so we know. And then if we,
No problem.
and maybe in that you can say, but good news, I've got this many names, I can tell them, or we're still shy.
Okay.
How's the van going? Is it been going out much, or
It
because
goes
of
out
COVID?
during, yeah, it goes out during early voting. And during the primary, we had just as many votes there as we did at one of our polling locations. So that was good. Candidates are getting excited about it now, which is helping to spread the word. The media's picked up on it. People now understand more what it is and are looking forward to it.
We get a lot of calls requesting, wanting information of when it's going out so that they can be ready to go. People are excited about it, like the trailer.
Yeah. Oak Tree Village asked that we drop off flyers.
The residents are calling, which day is it coming? We can't wait, we're going to be out there ready to go. We missed it last time. We missed it last time, but we're not going to miss it this time.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, Jessica, what was the number of votes for the?
For the vote-mobile?
I didn't even bring my phone up.
I didn't bring any
I
of
know
my.
it was better than one of the polling places, but.
It was better
what does
than
that
Union
mean?
Township.
Okay.
It was.
Wow.
No, I can email you that, I didn't bring any of that. I brought absentee vote information, but not individual.
I know we were pleased with the number of votes for the voter mobile.
So we were hoping that it was going to be a tool to get better access to voters and increase.
And it was,
voter-
and it was very helpful, especially during the very shortened early vote period that we had in the primary, because the people who were running the vote-mobile were able to stop at the satellite locations and pick up their ballots, and that way we could get them processed in and sorted, and that saved hours upon hours
I know.
in the end.
Question I wanted to ask was, a lot of people have been saying that, they're going to vote absentee, and I have like a daughter and a granddaughter that works. Can I bring those absentee ballots, signed and sealed, to you?
Only if they live in your house.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Only if they live in your house.
Thank you.
You can turn in household
I'm doing this
ballots.
for...
Absolutely.
So don't bring a big stack, Sylvia.
No, I'm just saying, a lot of people ask me, and it's good information.
Yes, you can
to get
turn
to the
in,
public.
you can turn in ballots for other people if they live in your immediate household.
Thank you.
But the vote-mobile, you can turn them into the vote-mobile, too. Is that,
Yes.
I didn't know if that was...
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize, too, that you can do it at the early voting locations. So once that starts in October 6th, there's a lot of people that call from Portage.
But
Well, right
again,
now,
only if they live in your...
well, no,
No.
but yeah, but they're your own.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will call living in Portage. Right now, they'd have to drive out here if they want to turn in their own, but once early voting starts, you can take it to the early voting locations as well, yourself,
Thank you.
or in a household.
Thank you.
But it is closer option,
Or to the van.
or to the mobile voting.
Have you found a lot of people ask that because they're afraid that the post office is going to lose their ballot?
Not so much that they're going to lose the ballot, but that it's going to be delivered after noon on election
Okay.
day.
Yeah.
Which
It's good.
was probably next year they'll say, well, nobody used the post office, so now we can really get rid of the post office.
Oh, they're really using the post office.
That's a good point, Sylvia. Better watch them.
Is your deadline still noon that day?
Yes, that's the state
delivery?
deadline. Mhm.
Received here, or?
Yeah, it has to
Yes,
be physically by,
physically in the elections office.
Okay.
by noon.
I think that's important that everybody realizes that.
All right, as we go down, I mean, there's the $70,000 we talked about for the vehicle. Next one down the line is $70,000 additional to ballots and coding.
So we have seen an extraordinary amount of absentee ballots. And when we budgeted for the 3,100 that we normally, absentee by mail is what I'm talking about, not in person. So absentee by mail takes the old ballots that are printed off of the ballotar. Absentee in person uses all of our new machines and our new ballots. So when we go from 3,100-ish ballots being printed and mailed compared to 12,000 in the primary, that expense of ballots goes up dramatically. Just our price to print the ballots were over $8,000. So we...
So do we already have requests for the mail-in ballots for the general? Do we know that it's going to be high?
Yes, we've already sent out 8,800 ballots.
As of tonight, it's 8,800, and our max number prior to this year was 3,000 total for an election.
Well, there's a heavy hitter on the ballot.
Yeah.
Sylvia?
So we're not talking, when we bought the new equipment, we did say there'd be less in ballots, and it has been less in ballots. It's just we're printing other ballots, not the ones that were included in our maintenance agreements or anything for the new equipment. These are all absentee by mail. And then we also had to, for the primary, when we set up our e-poll books and our machines, we code the machines, because we're not vote center, we have to code them per polling location. Well, at the last minute, we had different polling locations, because of the pandemic, decide, oh, you can't use us, and then we had to merge with another one, which means we need to recode those machines so that they're good at that polling location.
And it can't just be the one, the whole
The
code.
whole, all of them.
has to be
So how
redone.
many polls are you changing?
From the primary?
Well, you just said that...
These were last minute.
These are
before
people
the
who call us and say,
primary.
you can't come. And in the primary, there was, what, 4 of them?
Mhm.
4 of them.
Where were those?
The Boys and Girls Club.
Banta Senior
Banta
Center.
Senior Center, Porter.
Porter Township was a very last-minute one. The school corporation building was a location itself, and they had last minute, and they said it was state-ordered construction, so the voters weren't going to be able to access the building or the parking lot. And I think this was within the last week before the election. So that location luckily got moved to the high school, which was in the parking lot, but we had to move that one very last minute.
Have you
So
confirmed all
the-
of this year's locations?
We have confirmed them multiple times.
We do it every couple weeks just
Okay.
to keep
Just to stay on top of it,
Very good.
which is why we were surprised as anybody else.
Right.
But, I mean, again, they didn't know that they were going to stay closed to the public, and if they're closed to the public, then they can't open for election day.
So then is the Banta Center and the others, are they back open, or are they still closed? They're still closed?
We kept them
Oh.
moved where we had them in the primary, just because nobody can be sure,
Oh.
if Banff
Right.
Senior Center will open in time or not. So
It's better for the...
safest
Safety,
bet.
sorry.
Just consistent.
And we already notified them of the move in
Yeah,
the primaries,
cut down.
now there's not notifying again,
Right.
back and forth.
All right, you mentioned that you've recouped some money from the CARES Act.
Yeah, we submitted to the Secretary of State's CARES grant, which is separate from what the auditors and the commissioners sought out, and we received $52,000 and some change. Since then, I've also put in for another $17,000 of invoices that came in after our grant deadline, and then we just received word that we will be able to put in for additional general expenses. So the form that they have us fill out is, what did you spend in 2016, what did you spend in 2018, what did you spend in 2020? They're going to take the average and then be able to refund or reimburse some of the added expenditures that nobody saw coming.
Yeah, and I got to believe November's going to be a big turnout.
We're already seeing it.
I got to believe it's going to be.
All right, next one, office supplies, $10,000 in additional funds needed in order to purchase additional supplies for the absentee applications and ballots, and funds for Easy Vote Solutions.
So we tried to make the absentee ballots as simple as possible. We spent a lot of time highlighting all of the envelopes and just the expense for the envelopes themselves. Every time someone calls us for an application, that's an envelope to mail it to them and an envelope to mail it back. Every time we mail them a ballot, it's an envelope to mail that and an envelope to mail it back. And those are the heavy-duty envelopes, and so they're quite expensive. We do save in that we in-house print, so that saves us some time and funds. but they are very expensive, and we're already 8,000 in when we expected 3,000.
So I get that, so the next transfer, the,
25,000.
so the dues and subscriptions, all that stuff's wrapped into the same?
Well, this is Easy Vote Solutions.
Yeah, Easy Vote Solutions. So the way that we were doing poll workers is pen and paper. So every time somebody canceled, it got erased, and one person had control of that paper because you can't really share it across the room when it's on a piece of paper.
Well, a pretty advanced office, huh?
Well, then we upgraded to a Google Doc, because we don't have like Office 365 that allows multiple people in there at the same time. So we put it all into a Google Doc, which allows real-time changes and also allows multiple people in there at the same time. IT does not really like this because it opens up infrastructure concerns possibly, but we really don't have another way to do this. And then we stumbled upon the Easy Poll Worker software from Easy Vote Solutions. And if we were able to put all of our poll workers into that program, then we would be able to import them over in an Excel or CSV that the auditor's office already has, and then at the end, we could export that back over to them. So it should help with payroll, plus they'll be getting, instead of handwritten pieces of paper with incorrect addresses and trying illegible addresses, they'd be able to get a printed dump right into their system, so that would be beneficial. And also, right now when we're in there, somebody's in there just updating the roster of who went to class. This has an app, and when they're signing them into class, they just swipe, and it automatically updates the program. So that person that would be sitting there updating the spreadsheet now is freed up to be able to stuff ballots or alphabetize ballots or something.
And it's also live too, so a lot of times if somebody doesn't attend a class and it's at the last minute, it's state required that you do attend that class. So now we can be at the office live seeing, okay, class started. This person didn't show up. We call them. Are you still able to work? We've got one class left. No? Okay, we can replace you right now. Instead of waiting 3 hours to get the roster back, potentially.
So I guess
More
my
streamlined
general thought on all this, do you, I mean, this stuff's pretty self-explanatory, the rest of it, but I guess do you feel confident that you have all of the necessary tools for November to come off without a hitch? I mean, is there anything else that you think you might need as you sit here today? Are you feeling like we got this?
I'm feeling concerned about the hours. We're on Thursday, we pulled 21 hours a day, 13 hours on Friday, another 12 hours yesterday, so our hourly fund may be depleted.
So here's how I feel. I would much rather you go over in the cost for hours and staffing to a reasonable degree, obviously, and we fund that, than have a disastrous election like we had a couple years ago that we shall not speak. But that's much more palatable. We can fix that.
Right.
But when there's,
And right now, I think we're okay, but we may be back in October saying, hey,
That's fine.
Okay.
we're getting close.
So that's the point of that. So if you need that, because we would much rather accommodate you going in than have to explain later, which sounds to me like you've got a pretty good handle on this.
Yeah, I mean, we're all
Yes,
working,
yes,
it's
they're on.
all hands on deck at all times, everybody's pitching in. We're all working from home in addition, so we've got a couple of new staff people starting, so I'm not going to say it's going to get easier, but it's going to be.
Sylvia?
Yes, you said earlier that IT was having a little problem with this program you were,
No, they don't like us using a Google Doc.
well, did that get, everybody's happy now, that gets fixed?
No, we're still using the Google Doc because we don't have
That's
another
what
way
part of this-
with,
This is the
New
fix.
program.
If we get this
Okay.
new program, we won't have to
Okay.
use a Google Doc.
Thank you.
Is there an annual cost to this once
Mhm.
you purchase it?
Yes.
How much
Just
is
to
it?
house the data, it's $2,500 a year to house the data, and then it's, on years that we have an election, it's like $8,000.
Can you just have it when there's an election year, like next year, there's not?
So they house our data, so they keep all of it together, and so then it would be $2,500.
You said 8,000 a year when we have an election, which is 3 out of 4 years, right?
Yes, but on years that we have municipal, we get that money back.
So I know, I read through this and I asked you about, did you talk to Vicki, because there's one part in here about compatibility with existing systems, about data integration with your finance, payroll, and other HR?
Yes, and we talked this morning, and as long as she gets it in an Excel or a CSV format, then it'll load into her program. And we can actually take the information from her and preload our program, and then export it back out to her with all the...
So the end result is it's compatible.
It's compatible. Mhm.
All right, and there's something on here, easy campaign finance, so you'll be able to put up everybody's campaign finance reports really easy and accessible. And Vicki's asking a
I
question.
just want to clarify, we have not had a chance to talk with our vendors, so we don't know if it will be compatible.
Wait a minute.
When
That's
we
a
talked
two
earlier-
dichotomous statements, so let's...
Yeah, when we talked
don't know
earlier,
about this today.
yeah.
We need to talk to our software vendor, see if it can be uploaded. Even if it can't be uploaded, just to get rid of the handwritten, ineligible names and addresses, we don't know who these people are. So if you could just get it on a spreadsheet, that would be helpful for the process.
Typically is.
But we'll talk with our vendor, but we haven't had a chance to talk to them today. I'm
Okay.
assuming it will be workable in its own fashion.
Yeah.
When we talked this morning, I was under the impression that as long as it was a CSV format, that it would go over. But, yeah, you've got to talk with the WOW vendor itself.
All right. Further discussion on that one? So the next one's $5,000 and $1,000. That's a transfer for election night to assist and pay for part-time election staff. Questions on that? The next one is $2,000 overtime to contractual service. To pay the attorney contract for the rest of 2020. So, any questions on that? No. The other transfers are $2,000 overtime to supplies, $4,000 office supplies, $1,500 supplies. Any questions on to allow purchasing of additional supplies needed for upcoming election? Any further discussion on all of these additionals and transfers? Can we get a roll call on all of them?
Councilmember Graham?
Yes?
Councilmember Jessen?
Yes.
Councilmember Pepperell?
Yes.
Councilmember Sims?
Yes.
Councilmember Witten?
Yes.
And Councilmember Reavis?
Yes. Park operating fund, transfer.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I make a
$5,000.
motion to approve the transfer.
There's a motion to approve the transfer, the
Second.
park operating fund. Second, discussion.
We say, Walter...
All in favor of the transfer of $5,000 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Thank you.
Always good seeing you, Walter. Always good seeing you.
All right,
It's always a pleasure.
second reading.
Whereas it has been determined that it's not necessary to appropriate more money than was appropriated in the annual budget, therefore be it resolved by the Porter County Council of Porter County, Indiana, that for the expenses of the tax year, the following additional sums of money are hereby appropriated out of the funds named and for the purposes specified, subject to the laws governing the same. General fund, a grand total of $242,000.
Oh, boy.
Mere bag of shells.
That's big.
Oh, boy, there goes the raises.
1.5 million, prosecutor forfeiture fund, 10,000, prosecutor pre-trial fund, 15,000, forfeiture pass-through fund, 175,000, and additions response grant, $12,000. And that concludes second reading.
Motion to approve second reading.
Motion,
Second.
second. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Jessen?
Yes.
Councilmember Pepperell?
Yes.
Councilmember Sims?
Yes.
Councilmember Witten?
Yes.
Councilmember Reavis?
Yes.
And Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
All right, I'll pass attorney's report. We'll just blend the attorney's report right into any other matters that may probably come before the council. This is something that's kind of been going back and forth. A new law that's enacted for the Porter County Public Library and the Westchester Public Library, so
I'd like to get some clarification on that, Mr. Chairman. So I don't know if it would be Vicki or if it would be Harold, but I'd like to know two things. One is it my understanding then that it's up to us whether we have a binding review or a non-binding review, but the onus is on us to make that decision?
There are two triggers that are potentially there. One, if either of those boards, which are non-elected, which is why the statute is there, to provide oversight. If the growth quotient is over a certain percentage, then the fiscal body that's designated shall review the budget.
So along that vein, Vicki, I'd asked you some months ago to tell us if either of these library systems meet that requirement.
No for Westchester Public Library, and I believe no for Porter County Library.
Thank you. John.
And the second trigger is a may for the appropriate fiscal body. If the monies on hand, cash on hand from taxable funds exceeds 150% of their prior year's budget. In that situation, Westchester does meet that criteria. I don't think Porter County does, but that's a may. And so the council can choose to conduct oversight as long as they, by July 1st of the following year, adopt an ordinance doing so.
So when you, so I can make sure I understand that. So with the Porter County Library System, we don't have that option, but with Westchester we do? Is that a good way to look at it, or am I?
Well,
If it's the May, they have to meet the second prong to get to the May, and
Right.
you're saying Porter County Library System doesn't.
My understanding is that their cash on hand doesn't qualify to trigger that second criteria. So Porter County could, but their cash on hand isn't such that they do trigger the...
Because it's my understanding that the Porter County Library Board doesn't want us to, or isn't interested in us, don't think we need to. I guess that's their...
But we did analyze it, and the cash balance does not meet that criteria.
Okay. But with Westchester, they do,
Yes.
so we can. So if we decide to have like binding review over Westchester, we can appoint Paparad to be the spokesman.
Liaison, Bob?
Yep.
To do that, the council would have to adopt an ordinance, advertise, vote on it, that sort of thing, yes.
Okay. So this isn't action for this evening, this is more informational?
Well, the action is...
By July 1st.
Well, if we decided to take review of the Westchester, we would have to adopt an ordinance and advertise for that, so that's not going on tonight, obviously. Tonight, there was an additional change to the statute that required those two library boards and any other potential boards that would meet the criteria to designate the appropriate fiscal body in the event that either of these triggers are met. And so all tonight is just essentially designating, us acknowledging that Westchester and Porter County Public Library have designated the county council as the appropriate fiscal body in the event that there's a
So it's
trigger.
so it's my understanding that the Porter County Library System does not want us to do it. And I think we're about ready to hear from Westchester, as, probably something similar is my guess. But,
Well, if
Well,
Porter
and what
County has designated the council as the appropriate body in the event that a trigger is met,
right.
as has Westchester tonight, I would assume that, neither of them want us to conduct the oversight. We're not going to have any authority to do that with regard to Porter County Library. If we chose, or if the council chose, they could with Westchester next year, through way of an ordinance.
And I have the two, yeah, for each that they want me to sign. So Harold, now that it's clear how to move forward, I'll sign these two, and then that will make us,
We've acknowledged...
designated body moving forward. I mean, do we need to do anything official action as a board recognizing?
I think we could vote and just vote that the council's acknowledged the designation by the two bodies. I don't think we need to, but we can.
And so with that designation, what does that mean? Or do we know, if I had a little bit more information on what the triggers are, what the cash balances are, to better understand what we're even talking about, that might be helpful.
So the designation, we have to turn into the state library, all of the libraries in Indiana have to turn into the state library this form that states, in the case of the reporting, the fiscal body review, this body is. So everybody has to sign this form, and then the library has to then submit that form to the State Library of Indiana, stating just as such. So that's kind of Part A, that's the form that you've talked about. I have the originals too, you've got it. Does that help?
So
I'm
we
saying
are,
if we sign something, but we're not actually looking at it, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
right, and I can, do you have?
That's a good question. Can I, may I address that? That was a question that I had, Mike, too, because I didn't really understand why we had to acknowledge that. But the reason is as Lisa had mentioned, the change to the statute required that all library boards designate someone in the event that there's a triggering action. So it's sort of it feels like we're putting the cart before the horse, but the legislature said, hey, you've got to designate someone, and we're just basically acknowledging that. It's an acknowledgement that they've designated the council as the appropriate body. It's odd, I will tell you. I mean, I tried to sort it out myself and spent quite a bit of time.
Because you used to designate another body, right?
No, the statute tells us who the designated body is, and that depends on what size cities are in your library district, et cetera. And you drew the short straw, you're the designated body, and now they have told us, well, we want something in Indianapolis that lets us know who that designated body would be if the designated body chooses to go through all of the adoption of a resolution and notification of every taxing unit in the county and so forth that the statute requires. So this is just the state keeping track of who our review agency would be in the event somebody elected to go through all of the hoops to become the reviewing agency. It would be the county council.
Gotcha. So you're asking then, if I read the letter correctly, well, at least this is the Porter County Library one. So you're asking us to authorize our chairman to sign this designation?
Correct, because that's the requirement of the state, that the library board has to sign who they think the review agency is. The review agency has to sign so that in Indianapolis, they know who that would be in the event that the process is ever started. Right now, the process is, of course, not started.
Okay, then I would make a motion to authorize our chairman to sign these two declarations.
I'll second it. Motion and a second on the floor.
And is that with the intention of actually reviewing anything?
I think there's triggers again. I think it goes back to the whole, right? Every year
there would be a mandatory review if the first trigger was met by either library board, which is
And as
not.
that stands,
And
that trigger
neither
hasn't
of them
been
have met that, it appears, this go-around.
Well,
There's a permissive review, the second trigger, that the council can choose to undertake and require Westchester, in this case, because they have met that second trigger, the council can choose then to adopt an ordinance to require Westchester to submit its budget to us, and then we do a review. But we'd have to adopt an ordinance, and it has to be done before July 1st of the following year.
Yeah, I just personally, I mean, I'd welcome the designation. I think that to have some sort of review and oversight, there must be some sort of intent behind it in the legislation. And if we are the designation, then if we can choose to review it, then I would suggest we probably should or could review it.
So I'd like to speak to that, if I might. We have been working, so the triggering factor is that we have been legally saving our reserves and investing them with the intent of using them for our buildings and our facilities, which are, as most are, quite aged, although they're my age, so I don't know how aged I want to call it. And I've conducted a formal needs assessment, and we started this at the very end of last year, and then, of course, we all know what happened in the beginning of this year. But the architect was able to resume that, so we have our formal needs assessment, and we have over $5 million worth of repairs that are necessary to continue functioning, and also, things such as rooftops and HVAC systems, you name it, all huge, all the way down to the not so big. So my board is currently in the process, very beginning stages of discussing, next steps with these needs assessment, the things that we absolutely have to do to continue functioning, to be safe for our staff and for our patrons. and what we may or may not do with that reserve fund that we have going forward. Do we renovate completely? Do we gut a building? Do we build new? Enormous questions, very beginning of the process. So the reserves that do cause us to meet that trigger are actively being worked on so that they don't remain reserves, so that we can put them into tangible use.
So that may very well be a conversation for another day. I mean, if in fact your plans lead you to a path that you no longer meet the second trigger, and I'm not quite sure I want to do their buying unit here, but I don't know enough about the library system, certainly Westchester's to do that, but I'm interested in what you're doing, and I'm interested in where it's headed, because it's something that is needed and necessary and a great, resource for the community.
Thank you. I did invite my trustees here tonight because I thought there's not often a chance where you could each actually see each other. You, of course, know our attorney, Terry Heaston, but we've got trustee Mike Livovich, trustee Abby Trent, trustee Rondi Whiteman, trustee Nick Tilden, trustee Drew Red, trustee Michelle Parazzo, and trustee Catherine Cochran. So there's your introduction.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Nice meeting you all. Some of you I know. Good seeing you again. Thank you for coming.
All right, so there's a motion and a second on the floor to accept the designation by both the Porter County Library System and the Westchester Library System. Is that correct, Harold? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. There we have it. Get you
So
some
maybe as you
copies.
move through the process, I mean, we'd be interested to hear what you're doing, even if we're not doing some binding review. I mean, we do get asked questions, honestly, about the Westchester libraries, because a lot of folks don't know that it's not part of the Porter County Library System. So I get asked questions, and I said, let's find out. But, and they're always good questions, like what are they doing, what are some of the events, what are some of the functions that are happening, a lot of questions about what's going on during COVID. And I feel goes for the Porter County Library System, but, so, anything you
Well, please
think
feel free, always. I mean, we've spoken before. I mean,
Yes.
any of you, reach out to me, and happy to talk
So
about
anything
it.
you think we might find interesting, I'd love to hear it.
Thank you.
All right.
I will-
Are the library cards compatible? Will Porter County Library cards?
Yes, we do reciprocal borrowing with Porter County. Many of the libraries in the area participate in this reciprocal borrowing, which is wonderful for the patrons, and especially
So if we have an overdue book, we have to
area.
avoid all the libraries.
Well, yes. We know who you are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, anything else?
Nope.
Comes before council?
No? That about sums it
I'll
up.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll
this
move to
meeting.
adjourn.
Motion, second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Take like a 5-minute break.